magnificence and pure innocence of God. The innocence that must be remembered is somewhat beyond even a comprehension of what that innocence really means. That every thought that you have ever had or that anyone has ever had has been meaningless and has not in any way altered the truth of your being. How is that possible? That no thought that you have ever had has had any meaning other than the thoughts of love, the thoughts of oneness, the thoughts of peace, the thoughts that unite you to the mind of God. This innocence also includes anything that anyone has done in the name of fear, in the name of hatred, in the name of anything other than love, including righteousness, being right, all of the ideas of getting and the fears of not having, all of the ideas of proving and all of the actions that come from trying to prove worth. None of this has meant anything, and it has not marked anyone as anything other than the light of God. To accept within the innocence and the forgiveness is to accept the purity that has always been. But it must be accepted for everyone. And because the ego identity is based on battle and separation, everything that you have held or that anyone has held of being unfairly treated and damaged must be surrendered, must be disowned. The beauty of healing is that as you accept your innocence, you set all the beloveds free from the past that you held them in. In the average life, it's filled with incident after incident after incident, so many that you can't even recount them, of being unfairly treated, through the belief that you can be. And so much of the belief of being unfairly treated and the belief that you were changed, all of this was brought into incarnation in the belief of separation from God. And each beloved that everyone has held as the problem, the culprit, must be seen as the light of God as well. We cannot accept that we are the light of God without accepting it for everyone. And the way of forgiveness is, yes, to forgive, but then it's also to recognize that in the journey of remembering love, we must bring that forgiveness into the everyday life, which then means that each time you believe that someone is being mean or cruel or unkind, that you see through it. Through the grace of God, you're willing to see through it and remember for every beloved that they are not capable of inflicting harm. And that the truth of their beloved spirit has not changed. This is the healing of humanity. Is it possible that as you walk in the world that you have the power of God, the power of the spirit of love within you, and as you bring that forth, as you demonstrate that divine spirit and accept that divine spirit within for yourself, that you have the power within you to transform with the power of God. You have the brilliance within you to transform all of humanity. This is the power that everyone carries in the acceptance that you are innocent. In this world, everyone believes that everyone is guilty. There is no exception to that. The temptation of holding grievances and believing that you can be wronged or damaged touches everyone. There is no one that does not hold that belief in the belief of separation. And yet, how deeply can love transform? Love and the willingness to accept wholeness and innocence is the transformational power of God made manifest. Imagine how many times, even per day, you have the opportunity to change your mind from one temptation of thought to have an assessment or a judgment or an opinion of anyone. Sometimes they're strangers, sometimes they're familiars. But it's in the everyday. And to have that intention in your heart to walk in the world offering love, offering peace, offering truth. Is the power that humanity is waiting for. Many masters have brought that love, brought that blessing into humanity's midst. But each beloved who is called to serve the truth of love is also called as every master was called. It isn't to be left to the masters. It is to recognize the master within through the forgiveness, through the embracing of innocence of everyone. Imagine your life without the deep attachment to good and bad and right and wrong, or without the belief in differences that are constantly being used to categorize and catalog everyone. Most of this is unconscious, that it's just going on all the time. It's a habit that was made early in the incarnation, many times brought from past lives, but it's a development of a defense system that uses categorizing and cataloging beloveds as a defense in the belief that there is a need for protection. The belief is the more you know and that you can get a handle on of others, the safer you will be. Now, the ego doesn't show this obviously. This is some of the hidden agendas that run unconsciously. But love is calling you to bring it into conscious awareness so that you can no longer be the slave of the knowing, and that knowing being translated into categorizing and cataloging others. There is an element of perceived safety when you think you know how to categorize someone. You use information that you can see and that you can hear and that comes to you in other ways. And all of this becomes a sense of protection, because without the knowing of someone with information, you can enter into the heart, because all you are connecting with is the innocent spirit that each beloved is. The ego likes to keep categorizing and keep looking for information. Sometimes the information comes, for example, let's say someone has what can be perceived as a reaction to something that is overblown by your estimation. And that gets put into the pot of what you know about them. But love is calling you to let all of it go and not to label anyone with any ideas of what you think you know about them. To study someone and to get together a portfolio on their behaviors is all for defense. It has no other purpose. It's so that you can be safer in the belief of being unsafe by being able to read them and being able to identify their faults. But this is a calling to truly heal and bring healing to the everyday life. And in the simplicity of your everyday life, all of these beliefs of who people are and what they've done and what they haven't done and how they behave, and even how old they are, what their story is, all of it. Does it serve the remembering of love? Does it serve your peace and your connection to all these beloveds? If you look at it with honesty, it will be obvious that it does not serve love, and that it's just a subtle way of believing that there is something to protect and defend. But the time for unconscious defending is being called to be brought to the light and healed and forgiven as not of love and not true. Many times, unconsciously, there's a game that beloveds play, the ego plays, of looking for weakness in others, as if it has importance. Looking for weakness and looking for faults is a painful game. And all it does is keep affirming that there is danger in the world. But in truth, all the danger has come from the mind of separation and has no truth. To open to every beloved as the light of God is to come home quickly, because the obstacles to peace are through all the relationships within the world. That's where they show up. Whether it's someone that you see on TV or in the newspaper, or that is in your life in form, or they're in the past and you haven't seen them for 10 years or whatever, it's all the same. It's absolutely all the same. And the same healing is being called for with every circumstance. Some beloveds are being held in a standard of someone that everybody loves to hate. Especially those beloveds are being called to be seen as the light of God. To not join in the herd mentality of accepting that someone is worthy of hate or disdain or repulsion or even just dislike, but to step past that agreement and to truly love, offer innocence and blessings and the comfort of the truth of who they are. And your heart will be healed as you offer that love. Your awareness of truth will expand. And your fear that has been carried will begin to fade. Because you are refusing to hide any longer from the truth of love. This moment is every moment. This moment is where all innocence and truth resides. Watch and be aware of every thought, every reaction of having an opinion about anyone. And even to the place where there is not even a thought, but a habit of reaction of treating some beloveds one way and some beloveds another, instead of opening your heart and in the quiet heart space accepting each beloved as the light of God. This is not theoretical. This is not an idea. This is your heart actually opening through your willingness to be undefended, that you consciously make that choice. Sometimes it comes in ways of there's been cautions that have been so firmly integrated into your being that they seem natural. They're just cautions that you have developed in the belief that caution is helpful to protect. The call of love is to push past that caution, to actually refuse the impulse of caution and to open the heart and connect with each beloved more deeply than before, consciously making that choice. And asking for the help of the divine to show you the way. Teach me to love. Teach me to open my heart. The schoolroom is the everyday life. And the healing is in the everyday life. And heaven is here, present in this moment. When you make these choices of no longer having opinions about others or impulses to react in a certain way or thoughts that have stayed hidden for probably lifetimes, you are participating in the healing of your being, and miracles are occurring through your choice, through your yes. And you are blessing and bringing comfort. Quietly, not with necessarily being noticed for it, but it's felt and it's received every time that you bless someone as the innocence of God. It is received by that soul, that spirit, and it opens a door for them and for you. And your union of love gets closer and closer. In this moment of choosing innocence is the awareness that here in the infinite circle of love, we are truly one, and it's coming back to that truth. The infinite circle of love that has no beginning and no end. And has just been forgotten. To affirm with every beloved that you're in contact with, whether it's in form or thought, every beloved, you affirm that this universe is all love. That only love is reality. Not anything of the love that has been used through that word within the world, which has not meant love at all, but competition and fear. But love is calling. And within that love, the recognition that there is only one presence here. It is the life force of God. One presence in the entire universe is the life force of God. And every beloved is that life force of God. Mostly forgotten, but still completely the truth. Joining every beloved within that life force. We live and we move and we exist as the truth of God. Opening to that life force is the calling of love. One presence, here in this moment, only love. And inviting every beloved to join with you. And in that joining, the you disappears and the them disappears. And all the names that have been given as identity and roles that have been given all disappear because they are not the essence of being. Returning to the heart, moment to moment, accepting love's calling. In this hymn, in this sacred prayer, it's the realization that every beloved who has heard the call for love, that's been stirred to a deep truth, is wanting to come home. Even though coming home isn't something that you can make sense out of. But the longing of the heart is to come home. And to help and serve all of humanity for that same recognition of wanting to come home. And to come home is to realize that you've always been home, but that you just fell asleep and forgot the truth of home. Home is heaven. Home is heaven, and it is here, now. It is not someplace up somewhere that you're going to at some time. Heaven or hell is here as we choose. And everything of separation is being called to be let go and to come back to the holy union of home right here. All of the belief in separateness, the separate identities and the separate past, all disappear. And only love remains, home, right here. 1 minute to midnight, and the sky is turning black. 1 minute to midnight, and there's no turning back. I'm going home, I'm going home, I'm going home to stay. 1 minute to midnight, and my train is pulling in. 1 minute to midnight, when my new life will begin. Love calls me home, love calls me home, love calls me home for good. 1 minute to midnight, and the bells begin to chime. 1 minute to midnight, and they tell me that it's time to turn toward the light, turn toward the light, turn toward the light of my home. 1 minute to midnight, as I bandage up my heart. 1 minute to midnight, as I let the healing start. I will receive, I will receive, I will receive my welcome home. Allow the longing to come home, to radiate through you. Let that longing to come home be centered in your heart, not putting it away someplace, but letting it be the yearning that you have within. Because that yearning will propel you, and it will eliminate the reserve of business as usual within the world, instead of being centered in your longing to return home to the union of love. Receive your welcome home every day by remembering that only innocence exists, and to affirm and live in that innocence. The dawn has arrived. The dawn has arrived resplendently. The dawn has arrived of a new day. My Holy Father is here. That is where he is. And my mother is here in the altar of love. The dawn has arrived, illuminating resplendently the new day. My mother is here with open arms and with her roses of crystal purity. And the heart became resplendent and bloomed with all that love. And my mother is here. Yes, she is. And the Divine Father is here in great jubilation, resplendently illuminating. It is dawn and the sun has risen. In the resplendence of the divine light, the Divine Mother is here to help everyone remember. The sun has risen, illuminating. Let's all receive the grace of God. The grace of God that comes in the truth of innocence with each beloved. Every beloved is the love of God. And we accept this truth and live in the heart of love. This hymn was received at dawn in a meditation that my teacher was in. And as he watched the sun explode into being, the recognition of the illumination within matched the sun's rising into the brightness of a new day. That every day is your opportunity of beginning again, of forgiving the past of any kind, and to allow the illumination of the heart to be brought forth in this new day, and to truly surrender all of the ideas of the past. It is a new day, and the dawn has arrived, and healing is here in this moment, the remembering of love. Amanheceu, esplandeceu, amanheceu, um novo dia. Meu Pai é lá, ela que ela está, minha mãe está, é o seu altar. Amanheceu, iluminou, Resplandeceu o novo dia, minha irmã está lá, de braços abertos, e suas rosas, puras e de cristal, resplandeceu o coração de sabor roxo, todo é seu amor. Minha irmã está lá sim, lá está meu Pai, em grande júbilo. Resplandeceu, iluminou, e avada o sol nasceu, no esplendor da divina luz, nosso Mãe nos traz, o menino Jesus. O sol nasceu, iluminou, vamos receber o Salvador. Ele é menino, ele é o amor, que agora chega aos corações. This is a call to let your heart sing in the everyday life, choosing harmony and choosing peace and choosing joy, to come back and find in every moment the gratitude for this divine opportunity of remembering, and that there is the power of love so available to you that it will transform as you are willing to no longer dance with the old beliefs that cloud the mind, but to surrender them immediately into the hands of God and be willing to accept the light of God that is always present. Dividing God. The moon starts singing when everyone is asleep, and the planets throw a bright robe around their shoulders and whirl up close to her side. Once I asked the moon, "Why do you and your sweet friends not perform so romantically like that to a larger crowd?" And the whole sky chorus resounded, "The admission price to hear the lofty minstrels speak of love is affordable only to those who have not exhausted themselves dividing God all day and thus need rest." The thrilled musicians who are perched on the roof do not want their notes to intrude upon the ears where an accountant lives with a sharp pencil keeping scores of words another in their great sorrow or sad anger may have once said to you. The masters know that the sun will stand as your best man and whistle when you have found the courage to marry forgiveness, when you have found the courage to marry love. Dividing God. This is a beautiful way of saying the resistance and the rejection of God. To try to divide God into good and bad and right and wrong and those that are worthy of the presence of God and those who aren't. everyone is being called to let all of that go and how necessary it is. The admission price to hear the musicians speak of love is affordable only to those who have not exhausted themselves dividing God all day and thus need rest. The need for rest, to rest the mind, the exhaustion of opinions, is truly so tiring. It isn't held as tiring because it seems so natural in the world. And it isn't always pointed outward. It's so many times held as natural to self-criticize, self-critique, self-assess, not as a helpfulness of inquiry, but a self-assessment of likes and dislikes, and the belief that you just aren't worthy of love. And those habits of being self-critical, self-assessing, as if you are the decider of your journey. It's not to be mistaken for a self-inquiry that wants to join with the Holy Spirit to illuminate all the beliefs of pain and suffering that are being believed in and held within. That self-inquiry is coming from a place of love. Maybe not full love, but with the intention of bringing the false beliefs to the light and bringing those false beliefs of self-condemnation and self-assessment and self-opinions, and knowing to be brought to the spirit of love for forgiveness. That you're no longer willing to hold yourself in criticism and in condemnation. How do you walk the line that is not arrogance of your worth and the gratitude and humility for the illumination of what's in the way of peace and joy and harmony? Arrogance is fear. When you or anybody is caught in wanting to prove worth, wanting to build up a good enough identity for the world, that is fear that's running. And it's the arrogance that is actually fear. It is arrogant to believe that you are less than the light of God and that you have to prove your worth. It is complete humility to accept that you are the light of God and you have nothing to prove. That you have misunderstandings about yourself and that you have believed yourself to be unworthy of love is what everybody carries. But that's what's being called to be brought to illumination. All of those false beliefs of wrongdoing and wounding and damage and habits that have no reality and do not reflect the truth of who you are. But you're not being called to go on a witch hunt, ferreting out all of your darkness. It's the willingness to invite the spirit of love to illuminate what's in the way of the truth of who you are. And to be able to have a compassion within of the willingness to bring that to the light without condemnation and without needing to want to protect it or defend it. Dividing God is a pastime of the ego. And what is really being called for is the courage to marry forgiveness. The courage to actually marry forgiveness. What is it to marry forgiveness? It's really your conscious choice that forgiveness is so beautiful and so helpful that you never want to be apart from it. That you never want to forget your love with forgiveness. Because forgiveness is a gift that has been given by God. It's been given so that everyone can be washed clean of the misunderstanding of separation, of the mistaken identity of believing that you were separate to begin with. To marry love. When you have found the courage to marry love, that love is in the center of your heart and that it is everything that you are. Everybody's heard that funny saying in the world which comes to relationship of, you complete me, which is the fantasy of relationship, that something is needed on the outside to get. But to marry love is to actually recognize love does complete you. You are complete in love. You are love. And to marry love is to marry with God. To want to return to that holy union where there is no separation. And that love is everything that exists in truth. It's beyond comprehension that you could marry love to become that love again and remember that that's who you've always been. And that your heart bursts open and that you have to love. You can't help yourself. You can't limit love in any way. That you're no longer timid or shy about offering love. That you have to offer love in the same way that you have to breathe. that you have to blink. You have to love. Because it's who you are, and you married love. Do you really have to marry love? No, because you already are love. But when you believe that you're not, that leap of faith to marry love is the returning home. The musicians do not want their notes to intrude upon the ears where an accountant lives with a sharp pencil keeping scores of words another in their great sorrow or sad anger may have once said to you. Everyone in the belief of separation has an accountant that lives within them. Even if you think you're not good at math, there is an accountant that lives within. That accountant has been working for lifetime after lifetime, keeping score of something that has been said to you, or something that has been done to you, something that has been taken from you. And you can't hear the music when the accountant is being given the space that it is given. It has to be refused. It has to be rejected. That you no longer want to keep score of anyone's wrongdoing or the belief that they have wronged you in any way. Is it a leap of faith? Yes, it is a tremendous leap of faith, because everything in your identity says, I have to keep score, or I will be taken advantage of. I will be duped into pain and suffering. But in the truth of love, in the truth of God, it's that recognition that none of this was reality. None of it. To accept that you cannot be hurt is to open to freedom. And the whole journey is about letting go and letting each beloved off the hook, forgiven. They did nothing. But then, not only did they do nothing, but the healing includes you inviting them into your heart to live, to marry them in love, to marry them in forgiveness, to no longer see them as separate from you, different, deserving of punishment of some kind. We've all carried it. Every beloved has carried that. I carried it in spades. I was relishing, happy when certain beloveds were in suffering. I wanted them to suffer because I wanted them to pay. But that intention of wanting others to suffer, and it's a hidden element. It's not like it sits out in front being talked about, because it's not nice, and you want to be seen as nice, so you don't talk about it, but it's hidden underneath. And it's vicious, And it's the poison that when you believe that you are poisoning others, you are actually poisoning yourself. It's the pain of separation. And it completely blocks the heart. Even if you believe that you can love others that you agree with, if you have some beloveds that you're holding as needing punishment, you're in suffering because you're not aware of the truth of love. It's not even possible to be in awareness of the truth of love when you are wanting others to suffer. Even those beloveds that we don't personally know, that you read about in the world, dictators that have seemingly been on a rampage of pain and suffering, and wanting them to be punished, wanting them to suffer, all of it has to be let go, has to be forgiven, because this dream cannot disintegrate as long as it's being held as reality. And the only way of true healing with all beloveds is forgiveness, is to marry forgiveness and bring forgiveness to every beloved. It's very difficult for the ego mind that believes in levels and degrees to accept that a thought of irritation is no different than murder. They're all the same because they're all illusion. They're all not the truth of love. They're not the truth of God. So when we carry irritation, I certainly carried my share of irritation. It's the same lack of love. And we are being called to love. This is the remembering. And it is a leap of faith to invite beloveds into your heart that you want to reject. It is everything. It's a leap of faith because you have no understanding of it really until you invite them into your heart and forgive and refuse to see them as wrong or bad or needing to be punished. But it is your healing, and no one can remember the truth of love without that forgiveness for everyone. Everyone. And remembering that forgiveness is not being magnanimous and saying, I'm going to forgive you for the horrible things that you've done. No, then you're still believing that there's horrible things that have been done, and you're still believing in the illusion. But to really accept that everyone is innocent, everyone is the light of God, and there are no exceptions. It's the way humanity will really heal. If you want the answer of truth, it will be given to you. For sure. Absolutely. Love will always serve. Love will always bring you the answer that's most helpful. But then the choice becomes, do I want the problems that I believe in, or do I want the answer? Because that becomes the choice. The problems are what is known. The answers are always for peace and harmony and comfort. And the answer is waiting for you always. There is a truth that is railed up against tremendously. Not by everybody and not all the time, and that is that we have all invented the world that we see. There's nothing else is occurring except that we invented a world of separation that is of our making. And whatever misery that we believe ourselves to be in that belief system, it's coming from our own minds. To surrender the mind completely into the hands of God, which is what has to occur. I remember praying constantly, take my mind, and empty it of all false beliefs, because I don't want them anymore. They're not dangerous, they're just nothing, and they mean nothing, and they're just misery, because they're filled with untruth. They're not love. I invented the world I see, and I made up the prison in which I see myself. But first you have to realize that you see yourself in a prison. What is the prison? The prison is opinions and judgments and assessments of what you think you know. The power of not knowing is the power of transformation. Every moment you have the opportunity to come back to not knowing, away from the opinions and assessments. And when you embrace not knowing as the road to God, the path to wisdom, then you begin to willingly, happily surrender all the knowing. I don't know who I am or what I am. I don't know how to look on this world or anything. I don't know how to respond to anything. I'm open to what is most helpful, what will serve love. And in that prayer and in that intention of, I don't know, the Holy Spirit can actually enter and teach, because you're available. You're available to love. Prayer opens those doorways so dramatically, because as soon as you pray and you ask for that help, the help arrives. If you're not asking for the help, you're not available. And it affirms, don't tell me what to do, I'm on my own, I make my own decisions, all of that, which is then that place of perceived aloneness and separation, where you're not aware that all of love is wanting to serve you. Always, always. Never a moment that love does not want to serve you. But it's the call to stop dividing God, to stop splitting life into judgments and opinions and wanting to be right, instead of show me the way, show me the way. To divide God is to forget that you have to choose between truth and illusion. And how do you know what truth is and what illusion is? Well, it's very easily defined, because truth is peaceful. It's joyful, it's harmonious. And illusion is painful, or self-righteous, or has an identity that wants to get and wants to prove something. I don't know what's most helpful. Show me the way. And love always answers. Always. The blessings of your heart to forgive and to accept the innocence of all creation. It's very simple. No one has done anything. It's very easy in the simplicity. I don't know how to look on this beloved. I don't know anything about them except that they are the innocence of God. Every creation, every creature, everything that is alive is just the light of God, and waiting for you to embrace that light, embrace that union of love. Love is calling. The moon starts singing, and all the planets throw a bright robe around their shoulders and whirl. That's the universe of love. All innocence, all ease. Here, now. And the past is let go, forgiven, and disappears. Only love.